Blog Talk Radio. Blog Talk Radio.
Franchise interviews. From Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia, you're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews. Welcome to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews has been giving an up-close, behind-the-scenes look at franchising and entrepreneurship. Listen to interviews with franchisers, franchisees, franchise authors, franchise experts, and attorneys. And now, welcome your host, Marty McDermott, and Franchise Interviews.
Hi everyone, and welcome to a very special edition of Franchise Interviews, where for over 8 years, we've been asking the entrepreneurs one-on-one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott. I'm the president of Franchise Interviews, and we have a great show today. We're meeting with Dan White, the founder and CEO of Growler USA. And Growler USA, America's Microbrew Pub, launched in 2014, is a neighborhood gathering place dedicated to offering only American-made craft beverages and a menu designed to celebrate the unique flavors of each drink. And we're going to talk to Dan about that in just a moment on Franchise Interviews. So stick around because we got a great show.
Franchise Teacher.
Would you like to know how to franchise your concept or grow your franchise business?
Meet the experts at Franchise Teacher.
The goal of Franchise Teacher is to teach, coach, consult, and advise. The team of experts at Franchise Teacher will evaluate your business model and present you with a winning business strategy.
Franchise Teacher will help you decide whether or not your concept works and if it's franchisable. Franchise Teacher is proud to have over 30 years of experience in franchising as both franchisees and franchisors.
Franchise Teacher are developers of over a dozen franchise systems, which include brick and mortar as well as home-based concepts of nearly 3,000 combined franchise locations.
Whether you need to add more units or get more customers, Franchise Teacher can help. We will teach.
Franchise Teacher will help you learn our proven system.
Coach.
Franchise Teacher will help you provide a game plan to succeed.
Consult.
Franchise Teacher will make sure you stay on track.
And advise.
Franchise Teacher will help you learn from our over 30 years of experience in franchising as both franchisees and franchisors. Take advantage of our free, no-obligation phone consultation. Simply go to franchiseteacher.com or call us at 561-385-3032.
That's franchiseteacher.com or call us at 561-385-3032.
Are you looking for a franchise that delivers? Businesses will always need shipping, and for more than 25 years, loyal customers have depended on Unishippers for reliable savings and exceptional customer service. Unishippers is focused on just one thing: helping small and medium-sized businesses save time and money on all their shipping needs. And as the largest reseller of complete shipping services in the country, we have the buying power to ensure that we succeed. The Unishippers franchise offers low startup costs, no equipment or real estate required because they're not retail, residual income, and a quality of life and work-life balance. For more information on becoming a Unishippers franchisee, go to www.unishippers.com and click Franchise Opportunities or call Franchise Development at 801-708-5822. That's 801-708-5822. Franchise Interviews. From Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia, you're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to a very special edition of Franchise Interviews, where for over 8 years, we've been asking the Franchipreneurs one-on-one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott. I'm the president of Franchise Interviews, and as we were saying earlier, we have a great show today. We're meeting with Dan White, the founder and CEO of Growler USA. And Growler USA, America's Microbrew Pub, launched in 2014, is a neighborhood gathering place dedicated to offering only American-made craft beverages and a menu designed to celebrate the unique flavors of each drink. Hi, Dan. How you doing? Welcome to the show.
Hey, good morning, Marty. How are you this morning?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic, Dan. It's great to have you on the show today. Well, I'd like to ask our guests, where are you calling from this morning?
Hey, Marty. I'm calling from Centennial, Colorado, which is southeast of Denver. That's our world headquarters for Growler USA. And I just arrived here Sunday from visiting franchisees in Honolulu, Eugene, Oregon, Portland, Oregon, and Redmond, Washington.
Wow, that's fantastic. So you're all over the place these days, aren't you, Dan?
Traveling and I are getting to know each other.
That's fantastic. One of the reasons we started the show, Dan, almost 9 years ago now, is, we found that, a lot of franchises just like yourself has a story. For me, when I was researching your background, I was fascinated because, I think your story really goes back to when you were 8 years old, and studying your whole history to where you are today. I could certainly, I guess safe to say I can call you a serial entrepreneur. Maybe you could talk just like a little bit about that, like how you got started and where you are today in the history of the company.
Thanks, Marty. Yes. I am been called a serial entrepreneur.
Yeah.
This is my fourth chain of stores I've started, which includes a chain of pet shops, a chain of video stores. I was the founder of Rapid Refill Inc., which you may or may not know sold 100 franchises in 10 months. Yes.
Wow.
Sold that company out and started a private company, which I sold when I heard about craft beer. So I started looking at craft beer and came up with some concepts. The idea of bringing together terrific craft beers, handcrafted beverages of all kinds, kombucha, draft wine, hard cider, and some amazing food. So as we looked at this, we decided that it was a franchisable model. So I ended up bringing the team back together. Some of the folks that worked with me at Rapid Refill Inc. are just 2 doors down in other offices. Yeah. When I called Dave Shaw, Vice President of Sales, he said, "Oh, good, we're getting the band back together."
That's a great way to put it, Dan. That's fantastic. What was it about, and I think I know the answer to the question, but, what was it about craft beer that attracted you to this industry? Because craft beer is not beer. It's a totally separate industry, isn't it, Dan?
It is. It's a separate industry. I know a lot of folks like to compare it up to other beers that are out there, but it's actually a new industry. I think in our lifetimes we've seen some good business ideas explode into international businesses, Amazon, eBay, places like that, and we're about to see the same thing happen with craft beer. So handcrafted beverages in the United States, they compare growth in targets. We are on a 18-year double-digit growth increase. Last year in 2014 was a 35% increase in consumption of craft beers. So they're definitely carving out a new spot in the hospitality market.
I love craft beer myself, Dan, and it seems like the market for craft beer is a bit different than your typical beer drinker too, isn't it? There's a lot more women. My wife, she also loves craft beer. So it seems like there's a lot more women drinking craft beer today, isn't there?
If you love craft beer, you're going to love coming to a Growler USA. We've got 100 taps, a wide variety of local, regional, and in some cases nationally distributed craft beverages like Kona Brewery from Kailua Kona, Hawaii is now distributed nationally. And yes, women are the fastest growing component of craft beer.
Yeah.
I think in the past, the limited flavors of beer, there wasn't enough variety to reach out to a wide audience. Now, as of a few weeks ago, the American Brewers Association acknowledged there was 4,131 craft breweries.
Wow.
All of which produce anywhere from 15 to 20 styles of beer. So we have well over 75,000 styles of handcrafted beer. So in that, there should be something for everyone.
That's fantastic. Do you have a favorite? I always like to ask someone like yourself, Dan. I mean, there's such a variety, I guess, when you go into your own places. And, and a lot of, these products are really your own baby. But, I mean, do you have a favorite that you look for when you go in your own places?
I get asked that every day, Marty, with 75,000 styles of beer. Would you have enough time in the day to pick a favorite?
No, exactly not. There's lots of time to experiment, though, which I think is fantastic. Growler USA, it seems to me, in studying the model too, Dan, it's an experience. How do you? I mean, when you're at a franchise show, and if someone came up to your booth and they asked the typical question, so what do you guys do? I mean, how do you typically respond to the question?
It's been a difficult description because we have invented a new category of the hospitality industry.
Yeah.
We call ourselves a microbrew pub.
Right.
So we're somewhat defining a microbrew pub. A pub historically is a public gathering place.
Right.
There's lots of stories that go along with the definition of a pub, and that's what we see ourselves. So as we define that pub using micro beer as our foundation, we've found a niche. We've come in at 2,000 to 2,500 square feet with 100 taps of beverages, with an amazing selection of food. Thanks to our executive chef Gary Hiles, he prepares recipes that are things that you won't experience in most pub settings.
Yeah.
They're absolutely there to complement the entire craft beer experience. Because to your point, craft beer is new. And it's not just drinking beer. It's a total experience. And part of that experience is sitting around the pub, communicating with friends about beer styles, beverages, and enjoying the type of foods that complement the beers or beverages you're drinking.
That's fantastic. It must be interesting in coming out with new products, I guess, Dan. I don't know if you get involved in that, you know what I mean, because, you do have such a wide variety or so many different choices. New product development must be interesting, when you come out with a new flavor and you try and you say, that's interesting, and you kind of see how that goes. What's that like for you?
Those come out daily. I mean, if I'm in a pub for a couple of hours, I can see at least 6 or 8 new styles of beer come through the door.
Wow. That's amazing. You have all this experience. I mean, you've done so many things and have had so many accomplishments, Dan. What's been the most interesting thing, about Growler USA since getting involved in this whole concept? I'm sure you have like 100 stories, but, does anything particularly stand out?
I think for me, it's the entrepreneurship of the entire industry. I love speaking to the folks at the breweries who say, me and my brother Bobby were brewing beer in my dad's garage. And then 6 months later, Uncle Joe said we could use his barn. And then a year after that, these guys have 50,000 square feet and 80 employees, and they're still doing the same thing they were doing in the garage. So I think it's that. One of my favorite experiences, I was in the pub in Eugene, Oregon. These two guys drive up in this old car. I was watching them pull in. They come in the door with these 2 mason jars full of beer.
Yeah.
And they introduce themselves. They're a new style of beer. So we pour some samples for the folks at the bar. Wow. Everybody loved the beer. So I said, well, guys, it looks like we'll take a keg of each. About an hour or so later, these guys drive up in the same old car. They open the trunk, and they carry the kegs of beer into the store. So to me, that's the epitome of an entrepreneurial enterprise.
I love it. I think that's a fantastic story, and I think a lot of us, in our minds too, there's so many entrepreneurs out there that fantasize about owning, your type of business model, Dan. You know what I mean? I just think it's something that it probably crosses everyone's mind at one point or another. So I think that's great. Maybe we could jump to franchising. I mean, what types of characteristics will you be looking for in your franchisees, Dan?
Well, so far, after 13 months of franchising, it's a bit all over the map. We have the folks that are, have, to your point, have always seen themselves as the bartender behind the bar welcoming people, and they've worked for corporate America, and it's time to get out. I love working with those folks because they have goals and desires, and we can help them make them come true. There's people that have come in that just strictly want to be in the beer business, realize that the craft beer industry is a part of a $400 billion industry with this 18 years of double-digit growth. They see it as a way to go. I think that there's a variety of people over the map. Some of the more sophisticated franchisees we see are multi-unit operators, often from other systems that are saying, well, it's time to maybe get out of the shoe business or donut business and look into a variety of investments.
That's fantastic. What is the training like, Dan? I mean, do they come out to Colorado? I know there's a lot of training, whether it's online and in person as well. How does that work?
There is a lot of training, and it starts with basic business model. And it's all pointed at the customer experience. So the customer comes first. But we have great technologies in place. We have a system that actually tracks every ounce of fluid that goes through the taps. We have a tremendous point-of-sale system where the two are tied together. We use an electronic menuing board, so when people come in, they'll see large monitor screens, and all craft beverages, all the beverages will be listed there. And all that technology is designed to help the franchisee have a better business experience. In fact, they can see what's going on in their business from an iPad anywhere they happen to be. So it opens the door for a semi-absentee owner as well as a multi-unit operator by providing them that. But the training covers everything from basic business to accounting principles to cicerone training, which is beer familiarity, to how to cook recipes in the kitchen, but more importantly, how to present those recipes, because as you know, people do eat with their eyes. So when we go through the process that we go through to have these fantastic recipes, we want them to come across as striking when people look at their plates.
That's fantastic.
So there's a lot to it. It takes a couple of weeks, and then what we do is we will have several boots on ground during grand opening to reinforce the training, make sure the staff, the opening staff is well supported, the franchisee has everything he needs, and we're there to back him or her up so they can focus on their business and welcoming their guests.
That's fantastic. The technology is fascinating, isn't it? I mean, you always wonder, how they did it, 30, 40 years ago, without this technology, because, as you said earlier, you have all this ability today to, truly keep score, and it helps you be a much better business owner, doesn't it?
It does. It gives you moment by moment information on what's going on in your business. When this monitoring system we use is so sophisticated that if the temperature in the cooler should change a half a degree, it sends a message to your smartphone.
That's fascinating.
It helps in all inventory control, and you know what's selling. And if there happens to be a style of beer that in your neighborhood isn't as popular, you know that you can potentially put that on a lunchtime special and move that right through.
Sure. That's fantastic. What is, for our listeners, Dan, I mean, how would you, if you could paint the picture of a typical day as a Growler USA franchisee, what is that like?
Oh, my gosh, it's fun. It's very fun. When you open the door in the morning, you know, the kitchen staff is moving around. The kitchen's getting prepped for the day. The bar's getting polished up if there's anything that was left undone from the night before. We emphasize cleanliness, so we have the white glove test for sure. I expect to be able to walk into any of the Growler USA locations and, for lack of a better term, be able to eat off the floor at any time.
Wow.
So lots of cleaning is taking place, polishing, and then the fun begins because the breweries start showing up. Hey, we have this new beer, we have that new beer style. The distributors that sell the beer also will come in with brewery employees. And it's important for our Growler USA franchisees to get to know those brewery representatives because every week at every location we have what we call a tap takeover, which is where we invite in a brewery and let them tell us what they want to have on tap that day. And then they bring in brewery representatives, usually in the evening, and that person will come in with some goodies and some information about the brewery. And potentially, which is kind of fun, they'll bring in samples of beer in bottles that have yet to be marketed. So in essence, they use our folks in the Growler USA to give them some guerrilla marketing feedback on the spot. The way I look at that tap takeover is it's a way for Growler USA and the brewery to come together to communicate with our mutual customer.
Wow, I think that's fantastic. It does it. Fun.
Those guys come in daily, and once you get to know them, you're a regular on their list,
right? And
which is nice because then they want to come in and share what's ever new or upcoming with you.
That's fantastic. One of the things I remember reading about Growler USA too, Dan, which I thought was very important to me. I don't know if it's just as I'm getting older, but even now the music playing. I know you play music, within the pub, but it's not too much. It's not obnoxious. You know what I mean? Where you go into a lot of places and the music just seems to be too loud and you can't even hear the person next to you, And so it sounds like, you thought about everything as far as the experience goes. I think that's very important, isn't it?
It is, because that's part of the craft experience. I don't get this when you go into any kind of a establishment and the music is so loud you cannot communicate with the folks you came there to spend time with.
Exactly.
So when I find myself having to yell at someone that's sitting next to me, it's time to go. So we try to create what we call a conversational level environment. We do have event screens. Event screens may be for a sporting event, a public event, whatever it is. But those screens are on only when necessary or if there's something special happening. Because we do want to encourage that conversation, and we do want to encourage people to feel comfortable. And part of that whole public gathering place is to sit and relax and to be able to enjoy one another's time together.
That's fantastic. From all your experience, I was calling you earlier in the show a serial entrepreneur, Dan, and the majority of our listeners, we call them aspiring franchipreneurs. We kind of characterize them as, someone who knows or kind of thinks that they want to get into franchising. But the problem is that we find that so many of our listeners, they don't even know where to begin because there's so much out there today. And from all your experience, what advice would you give to our listeners in their quest to buy a franchise?
I get asked that a lot. And I would tell people, follow your heart. What do you want to do? When you get up in the morning and you put a shoe on each foot to go start your day, what do you want to do with your time? Do you want to be in the donut business? Do you want to be in the accounting business? Do you want to flip burgers at a fast food restaurant? What is your passion? Because if you don't go after your passion, you're always going to be second-guessing why you're there. I have a franchisee coming on board right now that purchased 2 units in another system that are both for sale because he got into it and realized that he had no interest in doing it. Well, if you have no interest, you're not going to give you're not going to have your best performance. And part of being a franchisee is that daily, and part of being an entrepreneur, you got to go out and, thanks to Chip Kelly, you got to win the day, and that's true every day. And the best way to arm yourself to win the day is do something you love doing. So if your passion happens to be craft beer, we've got a pretty easy road to get into Growler USA. We'll teach you how to be successful in craft beer industry.
This must be interesting for you too, Dan. I mean, because in studying your background, you've had all these different successes in different industries. But I mean, I can hear the passion in your voice in talking about Growler USA. So I mean, this must be an interesting time of your life as well, isn't it?
It's fantastic. I absolutely love getting up every day and going to work. I travel a great deal. My home is actually in Kailua, Hawaii. So I spend 7 to 10 days at home. I have an office down the street. I'm up at 3 a.m. Hawaii time to help with the company from there. And then I have offices here in Centennial. And it's a lot of work, but I love it. I look forward to coming to work. And, I came in the door here in Centennial a couple of weeks ago. And everybody was in here running around busy, the whole staff here. And the common denominator amongst the group is that they all absolutely love their jobs. And that then is a benefit for prospective franchisees of ours, because if we love our job, we're going to help make their job easier.
Fantastic. That's well said. So, I mean, I can ask you the next question, as the founder of the company, I mean, what are the plans for the future then, Dan? I mean, where do you see Growler USA maybe 3 to 5 years down the road?
Well, it's a little quicker than that. The goal that we have pretty much engraved on the wall is to have 200 stores by December 31st, 2017.
Wow.
And I will tell you today that we are perfectly on track of doing exactly that.
That's amazing. How does this feel for you? I mean, in seeing all these new franchises open up, it must be an amazing feeling for you.
It's exciting. It's a blessing. It's a point of pride to know that a silly idea that you had may help other people fulfill their dreams, as well as put a great number of people to work. When you look in the system, when you have 100 stores, let's say, you're going to have 1,000 employees to 1,500 employees that are getting a paycheck every week from a Growler USA. That's a point of pride for me.
That's fantastic. What's the best way, Dan, for our listeners to get more information on becoming a franchisee? Should they go to the website? Is that the best place to go to?
What is it? Yeah, growlerusa.com.
growlerusa.com. And it's a great website, by the way, too. It's another interesting point. My dad, I just wanted to mention to you, he has Parkinson's disease, and I've been, for years just studying Parkinson's disease. And there was a new study out recently about the relationship between beer and Parkinson's, or it slows up the process, doesn't it? I don't know if you've seen that.
Yeah. I think beer has a lot of things that support people. Have you ever heard the story that beer saved the world?
I have not heard that story. I think I saw it referenced on your website. So I'm going to have to check it out.
It's a true story. Back in the day when people traveled by foot from village to village, they couldn't drink the water because the water was often contaminated, but they could drink the ale in the local pub. And it took a couple of 100 years to figure out that the difference was that they were boiling the water to make the ale. So in a lot of ways, the earth is still here. The population of the earth is still here because beer saved the world. So craft beer is just making it better.
That's fantastic. I love that story. That's fantastic. Well, it's been great to have you on the show, Dan, and I'd already like to invite you back next year as you continue to grow. I think this is a fun, amazing, and interesting concept, and I love the industry numbers as well. As you look at the growth, it's just incredible, and as I mentioned to you, I'm a big fan of craft beer, so I love this concept. So I'd love to have you back on the show as you continue to grow.
Marty, that would be my pleasure. You've been a terrific host. Thank you for having me.
Thanks. It's been my pleasure, Dan. And we'll be right back with more franchise interviews.
Franchisers, are you looking to reach aspiring entrepreneurs looking to buy a franchise? Are you looking to reach a highly educated audience on franchising? For over 8 years, Franchise Interviews has been giving an up-close, behind-the-scenes look at franchising and entrepreneurship through our website, franchiseinterviews.com, where you can hear and read interviews as well as get tips from some of the most successful sources in franchising. Our weekly franchise radio show where each week you get to hear a new interview with franchisers, franchisees, franchise authors, franchise experts and attorneys, and our podcast, Great Quotes in Franchising. For more information, go to franchiseinterviews.com or call us at 610-905-2919. That's 610-905-2919. Franchise Interviews. From Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia, you're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews.
Hi, everyone. This is Marty McDermott from Franchise Interviews, and welcome to another edition of Great Quotes in Franchising, where each podcast you get to hear a great quote in franchising. You know, we've been hosting franchise interviews now over 8 years and over 400 shows, and during that time we've had some incredible quotes on our show. Today you're going to get to hear from Chris Simic, who is the founder of FranchiseTeacher.com, and Chris has over 30 years of business and franchise experience as an independent business owner, a franchisee, and a franchisor. And Chris said something very profound that we haven't heard on our show in over 8 years. He mentioned that you have to almost work harder to fail at franchising than to succeed in franchising, and he explains why.
Most people, about 90% I think I've seen, buy a business other than they first looked at.
Wow, that's amazing.
So
it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, that's a big number too, isn't it, Chris? You know, that, you know, most people, they go in with these certain expectations and they come out with something different, you know, and I find that fascinating.
I absolutely, it never ceases to astound me, but I think that speaks to the value of franchising as a business model and a business method, because people don't have to be in something just because they know it. And quite candidly, sometimes getting involved in a business that you would rather do, that you were not involved in, allows you the luxury of taking a new career path and to develop something you never would have had the opportunity to had it not been, you know, systematized and prioritized for you. You know, in franchising, it's said that you have to really almost work harder to fail than to succeed, because if you have a good franchise system, if you follow directions, you have to almost purposely not follow them to not do well.
That's true. That's fantastic. We have this great quote in franchising. I think we're going to put that one in there, Chris. I think that's very original, and it's very true. What advice would you give to our listeners? You know, we find that most of them, they're just beginning their search to buy a franchise, Chris, and we find that, you know, most of them just simply, they don't even know where to begin, like you were saying. What advice would you give to them?
I do, when I speak to people looking at franchise, I give them three different pieces of advice. One, make sure you're looking for business for the right reason. Now, a lot of people have things happen in their life. They lose a job or something happens, and they react and maybe say, well, okay, maybe I'll go buy a business. That may not be the reason to do it versus having the luxury of selectivity that here's my opportunity that was created by some adversity. Second thing is that they have to make sure that they are able to be franchisees, that not everybody is designed to be able to follow the systems, procedures, and the processes it takes to be a successful franchise owner. And then I tell them quite candidly is pick a couple of the industries and the price ranges that may have interest to you, and then kind of pin down from there, either using the resources of a consultant or a broker or a team member, or on their own. Either way, but I think that if they take their time, follow the steps, and do it for the right reasons, they'll be on a much smoother pathway to success in owning their own business.
That's well said. What's in the future then for Franchise Teacher, Chris? I mean, where do you see the company 3 to 5 years down the road?
Well, Marty, we've been extremely fortunate and blessed that the business has been around, you know, through Century Franchise Group for many years. Our new franchise teacher .com has taken off. We're representing right now, 7 plus brands. I think in 5 years, our focus will really be even more fine-tuned as the consumer or the prospective business owner is looking for more and more specific information. Breaking down to teach, coach, consult, and advise, I think will be a way for us to assist people in what they need. People, again, don't know what they don't know, but I think information overload sometimes discourages people too early. They say, this is too much for me to process. But we can break it down into bite-sized pieces. I think more and more people, especially the younger generation, who are looking for the advice and the information they want when they want it, I think is going to do nothing more than continue. Then our next business venture, which launches at the end of this year, is looking to capture all the different franchise brands around the world and put them into one place. So we're looking forward to a future. And franchising is going nowhere but growing. As you said for a long time too, the number of franchise opportunities, and the world's getting to be a smaller place. I think you're going to find a lot of opportunities coming in and going out of different marketplaces in different countries, accessible to more people.
That's fantastic. What's the best way, Chris, for our listeners to get more information on franchiseteacher.com? Obviously, franchiseteacher.com, but any numbers you'd like them to call or email addresses?
Well, actually, we appreciate www.franchiseteacher.com. And my business partner, Dave, and I offer them the free 1-hour consultation. Fill out the form and take advantage of it.
That's fantastic. I want to thank you again, Chris, for finally coming on the show. I've been following your career for a long time now, and I have just been very impressed with everything that you've done, So when I saw this, I mentioned to you, we don't typically call people to come on the show, but I had to have you specifically on the show. So it was an honor and a privilege to have you on the show today.
Marty, ditto, and again, congratulations on your PhD doctorate. I have read your thesis, and I would recommend it reading if people can get through the information.
I really appreciate that you read it, too, because that's an honor coming from you, so that's fantastic. Well, I want to thank you again, Chris.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with more franchise interviews.
Thanks, everyone, for listening, and we'll see you next week with another edition of Franchise Interviews. Take care, everyone.